Good evening. This is Dr. Cecily, and welcome to my channel. This segment is called Atlanta Child Murders. And if you looked at my other videos, I was going to bring up about the evidence and the suspects. Now, because I want to do some more research, but let's just give the backdrop of what we're dealing with now. We see the police brutality. We see George Floyd, how he was killed. They came to the conclusion it was 9 minutes. 9 minutes, and also they showed a recent video with 3 officers on his back, a black man cuffed on his face, and 3 officers on his back taking the life out of him so the whole world can see his murder. That's what really changed the trajectory of what's going on, because like Will Smith said, it's always been done. It's just that the mobile phone, my little computer, has made it more visible. But also, we see Breonna Taylor, how that one officer was just charged, and the other 2 officers who also had bullet shells in her body. I think she was shot, 8 times, if I'm correct. But the point is, that was a no-knock warrant. We see it over and over again. What about the current guy, Prude, who was put in? He was supposed to have had a mental illness, and he came out naked and had a spit hood over his head. He was naked, spit hood over his head. He had handcuffs in his back, and they end up cutting off his ear, and he died. So we see that these are all strangulations or either outright murders. We know that this is a humanity problem. Even the WHO organization has seen that America has a humanity problem when it comes to black rights, because it is clear to me that slavery is still here. It's just been how do you do it? You just pop it up, make it look good, but the videos tell the real story. And what that is that the qualified immunity laws must change. They must change. And the qualified immunity laws basically says that, first of all, the first part of qualified immunity means that they have to ask the question, has the person's constitutional rights been violated? Well, I think if you're handcuffed and your ear is being cut off, another form of strangulation, another form of hanging, because it's asphyxiation, you can't get air to your lungs, you cannot breathe, then it appears to me that that is outright murder. Now, the second thing to that, the qualified immunity, is even the officer may still be protected if they can prove a prior court case holding the conduct unconstitutional. And the prior case has to be sufficiently similar to the one. Now, I think that is injustice. When you can tell me ID and all these other programs come out and say, well, if you got them on camera, you got the killer. Well, clearly we see the killer, but the qualified immunity laws protects them. Now, that's why they don't want to charge the other 2 officers. And whose case is this? This is in Breonna Taylor's case, because prior cases have shown it has to be a prior court case holding the conduct unconstitutional, and then the prior case has to be similar. Now, the Department of Justice has already shown that the police department in Baltimore and in Ferguson, that they proportionally stop more black people in terms of stopping them, arresting them, giving them traffic tickets, sending them to prison. It's 3 times more than our counterparts. So the Department of Justice already know. So the issue is this: how can the Supreme Court take that and says that we put the constitutional violation, we're going to take that back down to the lower courts to determine? So why are you Supreme Court and you're not making these decisions? It's clear that you're murdering our people because it's for greed and for money. It is clear to me. For many times I had never looked at my history because it was so painful. Now I look at, because I have to make this backdrop of where we are to get to back to Atlanta. Now you see why those children, those 32 black children, we're not talking about the two adults that Wayne Williams was charged with. He was charged with 2 life sentences, and then for some reason they attached the evidence from the fibers from the 32 children, from the carpet and the dog, to him, but he was never charged. And then a lot of this stuff was circumstantial evidence. So I could see why Wayne Williams would possibly get an appeal, and I'm going to tell you why. So we see that this is nothing but a transition of slavery. From the cotton fields to sharecropping to the penal system. And this system is rigged. It is rigged. It's clear to me that it is rigged. Now, when we have that backdrop of where we are today, with the worldwide unrest, even we have the other nations saying that they're crying for justice for us. And if you look at the protesters, most of the protesters are what? They're white. But yet the leadership and the powers to be want to call them gangbangers, or they're a gang, or they're criminals. And both, mainly the whole, if you look at the color scheme, it's not like it was with Martin Luther King. They're basically all white. But because you got a power structure that want to continue to make money and profit off of us. No, I heard one, and I have to say this, I heard one general speak on CNN. And he was talking about, he was a retired general, and he was talking about how the leader in the White House, I don't even want to say his name, leader in the White House should consider the immigrants because they helped build this country. And it was like, we was not ever a discussion. Just like when the founding fathers wrote the Constitution, they'd never meant where 12 of them had slave owners. I believe it was 12 of them had slave owners. They never meant, the founding fathers never meant for the Declaration of Independence and the constitutional rights to be for blacks. And I have to get that. I have to give you the current events of where we are, and then what happened in the past, and then where they're going with that Atlanta child murder case. Because we see clearly that there is no intention of ever giving us our freedom and to give us the justice according to what, see, it's more than the defunding the police, because the defunding the police has other aspects to it. Now, one of them is, because I used to transfer, and you know, a lot of officers go out and they have to go and transfer people that have mental illness, like that guy that had the Prude, who had that spit hood over him. He was considered to be a mentally illness case. Now, the thing about it, defunding the police means don't get rid of the police. We don't want anarchy, but we need to get rid of this. And I don't want to say bad apples. These are just criminals. They're not criminals with a badge. And I'm not saying all of them are criminals, because I used to be a police officer. So for people to take it for the far right and the far left, that's not true. We need to, all this was going on, the unrest, the injustice, the inhumane treatment of my black people. It is clear to me that you're making a profit off of us, and it was never intended. The justice system in terms of fairness has never been for us. Now I want to make a little backdrop on this, because when I think about when the blacks left from the south to the north, a lot of them were, in the census, were considered to be criminals when they were just trying to eat, walk, bird watch, or whatever. And then when I looked at the National Memorial for Peace and Justice in Alabama, and I want to make a point in this, because when you look at slavery, and then you look at how that our lives have been taken by these officers because they're protected under qualified immunity, it's not enough that they get millions of dollars. When you got somebody that hate, or you got somebody that's ego, because I would think a lot of this stuff is just ego too, but most of it is hatred, and and then they're protected under this qualified immunity. They need to get rid of it, because it's protecting these officers to commit murder and get away with it. So just to give somebody money is not enough. The intentions to continue to have qualified immunity tells me that there is a system or status quo that want to have white privilege to continue to make money off of my black, unarmed, innocent people. The National Memorial for Peace and Justice in Alabama, because I want to get to this. It's a project by Stevenson. You can see it. CNN and 60 Minutes did a documentary. Stevenson, he was over the project, the Equal Justice Initiative, and it sits on 6 acres in Alabama. And in it had 4,000, let me put it this way, 4,000 names that they're gathering. But they have 805 counties, mostly in the South, with steel markers that represent the hanging. And what we're dealing with is terrorism. America want to talk about us being criminals when America's justice system is the domestic terrorism. They want to talk about foreign terrorism, but they want to talk about KKK terrorism. But America's justice system is terrorism because it have laws, the qualified immunity to protect it. Now, I mentioned that hanging because when I looked and researched the Atlanta child murders, I noticed that as I seen the newspaper article, I couldn't remember where I could seen it, but it's in one of my videos, and you'll see the children saying this is how they're marking it down: strangulation, 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 asphyxiation, strangulation, asphyxiation. And let me just give you the backdrop. I'm not going to go to the backdrop because I just wanted to show you where we are today and where Atlanta child murders was back in 1979. And you can see why these children's murders have never been solved. Because Wayne Williams was never charged with the child murders. He was charged with 2 life sentences for 2 adults. Now, I talked about the qualified immunity. Let's go to the backdrop. Remember, Atlanta, Maynard Jackson was the first black mayor in Atlanta. While other cities like Detroit, which I lived in, I'm in Atlanta right now, when they were going through their unrest, Atlanta was considered the city too busy to hate. But apparently they wasn't too busy to kill our black children. And just imagine where, my heart goes out to Breonna Taylor and George Floyd and their families, and I'm praying for them and their suffering. And even the guy that got shot in his back 7 times as he was turning away, but they allowed a white man to walk down the streets with a assault weapon, and they gave him a water out of the tank. See, you see about these hangings. See, I want to mention about the hangings. Then when you get to child murders, you see the pattern. America wants to talk about making profile. The American justice system is the serial killer of black people. That's just facts. That is just the facts. I hate to say it, but that's the facts. You want to see a serial killer? Look at the American justice system. Now, I'm not talking about people who have actually mentioned crimes. We need law enforcement. But the way it is now, the laws need to be changed. So with that being said, the children were never sexually, that's why I won't even say it's a pedophile. I have to take that out of my list because at the end I want to tell you how many, what is my suspects, what are my rankings of my suspects, and then you can tell me what do you think in terms of who are the suspects. Because I have at least 4 or 5 of them, including Wayne Williams. Now, these children were never sexually assaulted, but they were found strong, just killed everywhere against the school. Even like Yusef Bell, he was found. You can go on YouTube. It says a mother begs for her son returns. You will see it, and his body was discovered in school. And the reason why I want to mention to him because somebody has an article on YouTube about Yusef. Where is Yusef? That's the name of the YouTube article. Now there's no sound. I don't know what happened, but you can still clearly see his school was found. His body was found in the school, abandoned school, like in like a little sewer hole. Somebody had stuffed his body in there, and he had strangle marks all on his neck. So you can see what somebody strangled. So remember, these kids were strangled, asphyxiation. So they're still strangling my people, black people, unarmed people. But yet you can let a white person walk down the middle of the street with an assault weapon and then pick him up the next day. See, the justice system is not a justice system. It's just for those who can pay. They can play, okay? But not for blacks. So that has to change, and it will change. But I want to talk about when I got to look at the evidence. Now, realize that back then, that was the culture. They wanted to say that they were a thriving black city, but these murders kept coming up, starting with 1979. It was the celebrities, Muhammad Ali, Dick Gregory, and some others that came forward and said, you know what? We got to find out what's going on. It wasn't until the 14th child came up murdered. And remember, we're dealing with murdered and missing, because some of these children were never found. And I want to tell you what the state was. It was strangled, asphyxiation, strangled. That's why I don't believe it was a pedophile. It could have been a psychopath, though. Somebody that's like, because, you know, they enjoy killing. They enjoy killing. And the thing is that I can begin to look at these articles. Now, when I looked at the news, a newscaster, and he was black, and I just got appalled at the fact that he called these children hood. They were hood children. In fact, they were from the south side of Atlanta. They were hood children. They were hustlers. These was just children going to the store. When you look at YouTube, where it says, "Where is Yusef?" There's no sound there, but you can see where they're showing pictures of where he was found in the school, buried in the school, and also inside the school, but in the hole, and where he had marks all over his body where he was strangled. Now, Wayne Williams was never charged with the children, even though they connected the evidence with it. So I can imagine how they feel, and I can imagine why they're not really coming forward. There's too much going on. COVID-19 going on, people dying, especially black people at a higher rate, because we already, in fact, we probably got PSTD, lifelong history with centuries of oppression through this injustice system that wants to say that it's just. You're not just. It's a money maker, because you got to have a lawyer to go to think. It's to make money. It's to make money off of us. So I want to make the point about when I got to look for the some peer review journal articles. I didn't see any. I did see one on Mark Corridor, and he talked about the new question in Atlanta murders. It's under social justice. It was one page. He talked about the suspect with circumstantial evidence. In fact, you know, Wayne Williams came back in December 2019, and his lawyer is saying that they want to try to get him an appeal, so that he'll probably come up another appeal, because there was undisclosed evidence leaking to members of KKK that was suppressed. And the prosecutor did this. So there was clearly a miscarriage of justice. So don't be surprised, because remember, Wayne Williams was never charged, even though I think he was still, I still think he was one of the murderers, because I think there was more than one murders. If you ask the mothers, if you ask some of the black detectives, they'll tell you, even on that recent investigation discovery, they'll tell you that they would believe that there was more than one killer. Now, one woman, Angie, she had a daughter named Angie. Now remember, she was the one that told her brother was kind of upset because he said Angie's acting different. And then the mother went to her and asked her, well, what's wrong? And they said they named Angel. They said because they named her Angel because she was the only child that didn't cry on the ward when she was on the baby ward, when she was the infant ward when she was born. And when her mother went to her and told her, well, what's wrong, Angel? Angel said, you know, Mom, I don't even want to tell you, because there's nothing you can do. And she ended up being strangled to a tree, tied to a tree. She didn't see the rope, but they said that she was strangled. Now remember, all these children were strangled and killed. Now, when I looked at another article, Adolph Reed Jr., he was talking about it, but it wasn't much. It wasn't no more than what I could get off of YouTube, or no more I can get off of CNN, or more than I can get off of YouTube, or from what was already you can get off of Google. So we know that there were at least 32 black children, and these are not adults, these are children. We know that Mayor Maynard Jackson, he was the first black mayor, and they were, to me, they just swept it under the rug. But we see, when we see today what's going on, then we're not surprised at what happened back then, during that time. Now, even the newscaster, when the black newscaster got up and said, "Oh, these are children of the hood," it just made me cringe, because how can you call these children of the hood? They were from the South Side, and they call them hood children. They from the hood. They were hustlers. They were street smart. They was just children trying to live and survive and running errands. Like Yusef, he was on that YouTube where it says, "Where's Yusef?" He was just running to the store to get an errand, just trying to make some money. Now, it was Muhammad Ali, Dick Gregory, Sammy Davis Jr., they were celebrities that were bringing attention to it. And they end up, as they brought attention to it, then it drew national attention, and it drew also international attention. And that's when the FBI stepped in. And let me get back to another article. Another article was hit by Hitley. I don't know if I have his full name, but let me just tell you what he had ended up doing. It's on Google. He was able to use remember, it was the GBI and the Atlanta task force that was in charge of it. And what had happened was they had gathered wiretappings. They had gotten phone conversations, and they had got documents. Now, Hitley, what he did was he went and got the Freedom of Information Act, and he got 10,000 pages from the FBI. So I'd like to see that. Now remember, there was a miscarriage of justice, because the prosecution in this case suppressed some of the informants. They suppressed this information, some of this evidence about some of the suspects that thought to be KKK members were never brought to trial. And along with these other wiretappings and all these other wiretappings and phone conversations and documents, they were destroyed. So that's why I'm kind of surprised that when I Googled it, I seen that the GBI and the Atlanta Police Department is going to be over it again. I just pray that they're people with integrity. But as we see, the system is made to protect the officers, which I think it was an officer, as we see with the qualified immunity. So, on this task force was 100 officers. I would like to know who they were, but they were supposed to consist of the GBI in the Atlanta task force. And so they have all this evidence. And now also remember, when Wayne Williams, when they decided to look over the bridge, because they figured that after so many murders, that whoever the murderer was figured out that, you know what, I'm going to start throwing these, or she or whoever, start throwing these bodies, the suspects, start throwing the bodies in the Chattahoochee River. Now, when one of the officers said, Atlanta officers, why don't we do this? If they're going to throw the body over on the river, they're going to be a splash. So they made a stakeout, and the FBI was there and some officers. Now, one story said that he crossed the bridge, and then after he crossed the bridge, the FBI agent stopped. If you look at investigation discovery, this last documentary was very clean. It didn't point no fingers at you know what, but in that the FBI in the ID segment, the FBI officer said, well, I didn't see no reason to stop him, but why not? He had tape, rope, and a flashlight. I mean, that sounds like that's either to abduction or to rape or robbery kit. Anybody knows that? That's just like ID 101. So, and he said, well, he didn't see Wayne Williams fearful. Well, I think, if anything, it is clear that you want us terrorized. And you are been terrorizing us through your justice system because it's unfair, because it's not ours. It clearly is not ours. So it surprised me when he said in the documentary, oh, he was not fearful. He seemed like he was calm. Well, most killers are going to be calm because a lot of them are intelligent and a lot of them are very, very, savvy, and they know how to get away with crime. That's why they're criminal. But John Glover was the FBI special agent in the Atlanta child murders. And he was the one that was in the, so I was wondering why they let the car get over past the bridge, when you stopped him at the bridge. And then he said in the documentary, go look at the documentary, he said, I didn't see no reason to stop him. And then they didn't arrest him till the next day. I mean, well, there was evidence that you missed. And then you said, well, you thought the officers got it. But then, that's why I said that there's a lot of ego going on. There's a lot of ego. And by me working at the sheriff's department, I know that there is not only racism, but ego. So combine that, it's just pure hell for us as black people. And until they change the law, it's clear to me that they want to make money off of us. Now, what Camille Bell did, she was the mother of Yusef Bell. And she was the founder of the Committee to Stop Children's Murder. And I also made a video about the voices of the mother. And I might make another one, because I'm pretty sure they're going to be interviewing her. Because remember, these mothers never got up to even have any say in it because nobody was ever charged. So you already feeling for Breonna Taylor. And these are mothers that got no justice for how many years? These are decades of miscarriage of justice and poor leadership, and just the way that you just treated these children like, and I don't even say dogs, because dogs down here in Atlanta, mess with a dog down here, they'll have you locked up. So Wayne Williams was charged with Nathaniel Cater was his name, and Jimmy Ray Payne. Now they were two adults that were found killed in the river, and he was given 2 life sentences. But like I said, he came up, and they also have he also has a team of people that's fighting for him, and I think he might get appeal. I think he might get out, because when you see this miscarriage of injustice, even with him, how can you tack some evidence on saying that the fiber that was found on some of these bodies was found on him? But they did find some on the adults, 2 adults, and one of those adults they did see Wayne Williams holding hands with, and he did have witnesses. And that's also in my video, and you can also locate that. But they did see him with one of those young men that was later found in the river after his car was stopped. So they was able to connect him with some of those fibers. Now, I'm interested to find out, why is the GBI and Atlanta Task Force on it when we see that the FBI files had 10,000 pages of documents? But a lot of this stuff was suppressed, was never given to the jurors, was suppressed. These documents were destroyed. These wiretapes and tapings were destroyed. These telephone conversations were destroyed. So that is clearly going to be maybe Wayne Williams maybe have an appeal, and he may be released, because a lot of that evidence was circumstantial. Now let me talk about some of the evidence. Now there are also, the prosecutor used a co-worker to establish a motive for Wayne Williams, because he said he heard him say that he didn't like, in other words, he was going to kill as many as he could, and that he didn't like black children. But also, they talked about the hairs. The University of Georgia did a analysis of the dog hairs and found out the dog hairs were Siberian Husky and not a German Shepherd like Wayne Williams had. Now remember, so the prosecution, what they did, they concealed, they deleted, they destroyed evidence of wiretap taps, phone conversations, and other things. They were destroyed by the Atlanta Task Force and the GBI. So again, why isn't the FBI or some outside agency conducting this? Unless the FBI is overseeing it, and I don't know. But that's mainly to be seen. I would like to know. Now, we know that there was some wiretap tapings about Sanders. Now, Sanders, he was a white Ku Klux Klan. He was the one that supposedly, allegedly, somebody came and said that he owned a Siberian Husky. Now, remember, Wayne Williams owned a German Shepherd. But at the trial, the jurors never got to, at the trial, the jurors that were never told that the hairs were inconsistent. Now, the Atlanta Police Department had noted that Sanders was one of the main suspects. And one of the members of Sanders' family allegedly recorded on wiretap, let's go out, that Sanders said, let's go out and kill another black kid tonight. And he didn't use that word, he used the N word. And then, of course, I wanted to make about the hairs. It was the University of Georgia veterinarian department that concluded that the dog's hairs from the victims' bodies could only have come from a Siberian Husky on Alaska. I don't know what that word, Malamute, Malamute. I guess the dog lovers would know. And then they had an academic peer review, a couple pages by Jack Maylard in 2007. Just a couple pages. This is not really no big, long investigation or no long discovery, no more than what you get on Google. But he said in his title was Fibers and Dog Evidence. Is it real evidence? An update on the Atlanta child murders. So here's somebody saying that, and this is from the District Attorneys Association. And I think this was maybe 5 pages. But they were saying, in other words, they questioned it. Was it real evidence to convict Wayne Williams? Which I think, in my mind, was, I looked at the evidence that was presented at the trial, what was presented, and his behavior and what they found as far as the body. One of the bodies, I know one of the bodies of adults, he had hair fibers that was consistent with his carpet fibers in his home. And also the dog, I don't know about the dog fibers, but I know the hair, not the hair fibers, but the carpet fibers. Now, the prosecution also had a unreliable witness, because he was arrested 8 times in the 1970. And he was, I think his name was Billy Joe Whittaker. He was an informant. They said he was reliable. He was prosecutors, he was reliable for 18 years. But if you're a criminal, of course, you're going to be unreliable to me. But he was wiretapped, and he said that Sanders said he was going to kill Jeter for hitting Louis Jeter was his name, and that Sanders was going to kill him, a black boy, and was going to kill Jeter. And Jeter came up missing and killed and murdered a week later. And a second informant, who has not been located, for questioning, also about police details of the KK influence on the Atlanta child murders. So let me just get to it, and I'm about to end this. Now, it's going to be interesting, because remember, there's like Metro Atlanta has to deal with several counties, DeKalb, Fulton, Cobb, and maybe some other, but it says it's supposed to span 7 counties. So you're going to see, well, now also in the news conference, I think it was our mayor, Atlanta Mayor Keisha Lance Bottoms, I think she mentioned it, or the prior chief before she got fired. I forgot what her name was, but they had said that they were trying to get the evidence together. They don't even know. I guess the evidence probably was just thrown everywhere. So but if you see what we're dealing with today in this backdrop of 2020, with the killings of our unarmed black people and the Karens that's just stopping us, and just remember, that's what I want to make about this, about that museum, because those museums were where those representing 805 counties in the South, where 4,000 people are notated on this marker, and they're suspended from, like the back of my lights, where they're suspended, and the markers have names of people representing the hangings and the lynching. And remember, when we talk about terrorism and when we talk about inhumane treatment of black people consistently, the Department of Justice is not, when I listen to the conversation about, we need to have a discourse, I think the discourse is enough. We didn't have enough conversation. The Department of Justice have enough evidence over all these since slavery that there is a consistent, a blind man can see it, a 5-year-old can tell you that there's a consistent denial, killing, murdering of innocent black people for trying to live, walk, talk, and thrive. It's consistent. And the whole objective is for money and greed. The whole objective to try to classify us as criminals and as people who are criminals, really, basically, and that we have no value. That is clear to me that the system is set up to make money. That's all it is. So you devalue, and what is abuse? Abuse is, you've done it at the beginning of time. And I don't want to get off track, but it is clear to me that this system is set up to make money, and it's to protect the status quo, because the status quo wanted as so, because we're not valued, because it was never intended for us to have constitutional rights. Because out of our founding fathers that made the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution, it was never meant for black people. It is clear. I am sure when they sat down, and even when they wrote it, we were not in it, even though 12 of them, our presidents, owned slaves. And some of them had black babies, okay? So here is now we know about the evidence. Now let's talk about my list of suspects, and then you can put in your comments what your list is. Number one, I always thought it was an officer. I said before I even did any research in my very first video, when I started talking about it, when I found out that ID had that program on the Atlanta child murders, and when I found out that our current mayor, Keisha Lance Bottoms, was reopening the case, I knew then, I felt it was an officer. Because I was from up north, we said that, look, all the Klan did was take off the robe, took off the hood, and put on a police cap. He put on a juror's cap. He put on a prosecutor's cap. He put on the defense attorney cap. He put on the penal system cap. He put on the warden's cap. He put on the administration cap for the attorney. They just took the hood and the Ku Klux Klan hood and just put on other caps where they became corporate America. So our system, the qualified immunity has to be changed. So was an officer. So that way, when they said Wayne Williams, it had to be Wayne Williams, because when we arrested him, all the murders stopped. Well, if you're working right as an officer, then you would know to stop. Then I believe it was KKK. I believe that Sanders may have been a suspect or KKK. Number three, I believe that there was a white prominent rich man. Remember, this is a pay-to-play system. This is a pay-to-play system. So remember, one of the Angel's mother, she's gonna go on YouTube. Look at her testimony. She stated that the officer came to her. And I'd like to know who that officer's name is. Came to her and said, "Oh, we know who killed your daughter." Remember, she was found. She didn't see her, but she was found strangled. All these kids were strangled. The list was strangled, asphyxiation, strangled, asphyxiation, strangled. My third one was, like I said, a white prominent rich person. Maybe somewhere, maybe they're in Supreme Court. Well, they could be in the White House, for all I know, because they're in every walk of life. Remember, when we talk about these hangings at this memorial system, remember, it wasn't just, that's why I was just appalled to see that white guy walk down, shoot into a unarmed, peaceful protesters with assault weapon, then go home and get arrested. But yet you shoot that young man, that black man that had walked away 7 times in his back. No, I'm going to talk about it. Yep, because this is America, right? American for who? It's like the justice is just for the my white counterparts. And do I hate white people? No. No, I don't. Because hate is crazy. Hate is insanity. That's why you still got this qualified immunity. That's why the Supreme Court, why was the Supreme Court give it to the lower court when it's clear violations of my constitutional rights? In fact, when I was in the jail, the jail that I worked in, the Andrew Baird Detention Facility in downtown Detroit, next to Detroit Police Department, that jail was built because of a lawsuit from the inmates. The inmates wrote that because there was so much injustice with their meals, with their getting medical help. They built that jail. They had this jail built. A lawsuit did. So the white prominent, I believe it was a white prominent rich person. And they could be anywhere. And I just wondered, because Angel, the one that got strangled, and when the mother found her, didn't find her, but was told that she was strangled to a tree. Tied to a tree. Strangled and tied to a tree. What that sound like to you? That sounds like a modus operandi of terror, domestic. We got a domestic. You talking about Al Qaeda and everybody else, all these other foreign and people that's supposed to be danger to America. Our whole justice system is danger to black people. It's a terrorist. It's a domestic terrorist. I'm serious. Then you want to get profiled by serial killers? To me, this is a repetition of a serial killer. You're doing the same mode of operation. You went from a rope to now you went to cutting off somebody's ear. It's still cutting off some ear. Whether you take your knee, whether you take your arm, chokehold, it's the same thing. It's the same modus of operandi. Now, let me get to my list. Officer. It was probably a KKK. It was probably a white, rich, wealthy guy. Because remember, Angel, the one was found strangled to a tree. The officer came to the mother. You can look it on YouTube. And she said, why can't he be arrested? She said, he's so powerful and rich, it'll never go to court. And it has not went to court. Number 4, I don't believe it was a pedophile, because remember, these kids were never raped. I believe it was a psychopath. Because remember, there is the FBI did something, or somebody did a thing about what constitute, in fact, the FBI informant, I forgot his name, is one of my videos. 2 of them was talking about how they were giving the profile of a serial killer. And one of the things is called desire killing. They like to do certain things as a modus operandi and their desire. So it's called desire killing. So to me, it looks like that by these kids being strangled, that was the thing that they wanted. It was either a psychopath, and I believe they were racist, and they like to see the suffering of other people. It's one of their motives. They enjoy seeing suffering of killing people. They enjoy it. So that's my 4th one. And then my 5th one, I want to say this. More than likely, remember, they found, you can go on YouTube or look at one of my prior videos, that one of the children, or some of the children, had missing organs. So I think it was either CDC, they said it was either CDC body parts, or this could be somebody just harvesting body parts. That's what I think. Because who would take a body part and send it to Atlanta? I mean, but hey, that we've heard other crazy things, okay? FBI agents falling out the window when they try to disclose something that the public may need to know. But yes, those are my five lists. Officer, a KKK member, a white, prominent, rich man, a psychopath, and then also somebody harvesting body parts. Because remember, one of the ladies said they had hypodermic needles on somebody's, and their private parts was missing, and then organs was missing. Okay, that concludes my documentary for the Atlanta child murders, and I just wanted to go over some of the evidence and some of the suspects. You can just down below, just comment who you think they were. I'm pretty sure you're probably going to say KKK and officer, but just tell me what other ones you may have. And thank you for looking at my channel. Please pray for me. Like and subscribe, and then once they find out what they're going to do with this evidence, and once, because I'm pretty sure with the COVID-19 and all the unrest, they're going to kind of let this settle. We don't need to put any salt in any wounds, but I just want to mention this to try to give the mothers a voice, to let you know that more people speak on it, then we'll see what the future will hold. So God bless. Look at my other channels. I got a channel on leadership. I also got a channel on fulfilling your God-given destiny and the state of America. God bless. Like and subscribe. Thank you.